So today I'm going to present you the just a reflection on Pope John Paul II. Today is his feast day, and on a martyr who he beatified in 1988, Blessed Miguel Augustin Pro. So I just thought I'd take you through a little bit about where Blessed Padre Pro died here in Mexico City, the museum that they have for him, and his where his remains are today. But today, when I was doing that recording, I went to mass here in the Cathedral, which is here in the centre, and today we celebrate the feast of Saint John Paul II. I mean, it's really hard to talk about the legacy of a man which spans so many years. He was one of the longest serving popes of the last century and this century, and he became pope unexpectedly in 1978. I did have the grace of meeting him in 1995. I served mass for him during the Easter Vigil, so I'll always remember. This was when he could walk. I'll always remember him coming into that small sacristy, which is just beside La Pietà. If anybody knows St. Peter's, that's where he got prepared, because the mass was going to start outside of St. Peter, outside them in the cortile, and the outside for the Easter, with the blessing of the candle and so forth. So I'll never forget serving mass for him, and being there in the middle of the church and seeing all the cardinals and bishops around him that were there present for that mass, and the basilica full of people on such an important night. And it's interesting when you meet the Pope in person, you kind of get an idea of what he's like, what it's like to stand beside a pope for 3 to 4 hours, as he said the mass and he gave the homily and so forth. This was a man just at the start of his Parkinson's was beginning to take effect on him, but he was still walking at that time. I do remember John Paul II walking, especially in Paul VI Hall when he gave an audience. I mean, he was a great figure for us. He inspired a lot of people. He inspired a lot of priests. He gave testimony to the church. I mean, later in life we can criticize some of the actions that he took, especially when it came to Father Marcial and other people in the church. I suppose then we have to realize that popes are men. They are human beings. They make mistakes. They have faults. And nobody that occupies that office is going to occupy it and not make mistakes and not have faults and make errors of judgment and so forth. And John Paul II did that, and so did Pope Benedict. And today we have Pope Francis in office, and there's a lot of confusion. We have Cardinal Martini's vision for this synodal church. So we're on this path from becoming the Catholic Church to the synodal church. Seemingly, we're all the talk now in Rome is synodal church. How can we better work in this synodal church? Well, okay, I still remain in the Catholic Church, and I'm not sure that this Jesuit experiment, which has been discussed by Jesuits for many years, this Jesuit experiment is going to work. So let's see. But popes make mistakes. They make errors in judgment, and I think we should be careful before we rush in there to try and how we talk about them and what we say, because if we're going to look for the perfect man to be the vicar of Christ, then we have the example of St. Peter himself. St. Peter himself, who ran away from the crucifixion. He didn't stay with St. John. St. Peter that denied Christ 3 times. St. Peter that supposedly was leaving Rome, and Christ found him in that famous church Quo Vadis, and he returned. I mean, so Christ calls weak men sometimes, and that's simply it. But I think it's important, I suppose, that we pray for the Pope at this time. We pray for what's going on in the church, this time of unprecedented confusion, and I think it's important that we remain united as a church. It's very easy in times of confusion to run off to this group and that group, that looking for, and this group has all of the answers, they're doing everything perfect, they have the perfect liturgy, everything is here, and we forget, if we do not remain united as a church, that we're not following Christ's call. Christ asks us to remain and work in his church. We have to. Even when we don't have all the answers and we can't see what's going on, Christ is calling to remain and work in his church. To listen to his voice in his church. That's what he told me. Listen to my voice and I will speak to you in my church. And so it's important that we remain united. And the papacy, the Pope, is the key in the Catholic Church. He unites us, and if without that we just go off into our little groups, we would dissolve away. It's important that we follow, that we know love the papacy and pray for the Pope. I know it's difficult, but that's our call. Anyway, moving on to what I wanted to talk to you about was a Mexican priest, a Jesuit, Father Miguel Augustin Pro. He was a young Jesuit priest. He was barely 1 year ordained when he was accused of bombing President Calles. I think it was, let me just get his name here. Calles, I think it was Plutarco Calles. Plutarca Elias Calles. So he was accused of bombing it. Obviously he didn't, but he was accused of placing a bomb, and the president himself ordered that he was shot. He had been studying in Spain. He was ordained in Belgium and he was ill at the time, and his superiors thought by sending him back to Mexico it might help. So he returned to Mexico, and during his time there he was dressing up in different outfits and going around ministering to people. You'll see here in the museum the little briefcase he would have used for mass, and his vestments and his prayer books and some of his disguises. I will say one thing. When I was in the museum today, there at the back of the museum they have kind of an audio of what it would sound like to when the order was giving him to be shot. So they have the audio in Spanish, and Father Miguel saying "Viva Cristo Rey," long live Christ the King. And got very emotional. I don't know what was going on there. It was kind of it was kind of strange, just thinking about his last moment with his arms extended with the rosary in one and the cross in the other. A bit like in Lough Derg, if anybody's been to Lough Derg, when we go there and we put ourselves onto the back of St. Bridget's cross and we say, I reject the world, the flesh and the devil. Well, in that stance, we're holding our arms out like this. I suppose it was, it did remind me of that. I did think it was sad that where he was actually shot, that there wasn't a little bit more, instead of this tiny plaque, there wasn't anything else to remind us. But anyway, I just take you through some of the footage from today about Father Miguel Augustin Pro. So I'm out for a walk this morning, and I'm in a street that many people will be familiar with, because somebody was killed on this street that to this day practically everybody in the Catholic world knows about him. And this was a young priest. He was barely a year ordained before he was shot, and he was here in this street here. So I think people start to guess who I'm talking about. I'm talking about Blessed Miguel Augustin Pro. So I've been to Mexico City many times. I didn't even know where he actually died. So this is the location in Mexico City behind the National Lottery building. And seemingly there's a medium now lives above this place. I don't know. But here, and I just read it out here, en la acerca del frente en línea perpendicular al fin de la escalera cayó muerto el Padre Miguel Augustin Pro, fusilado 23 de noviembre de 1927. So this is the place where he died, right in this spot. So he, as people remember, he was studying in Spain. He got ordained in Belgium. He was a Mexican Jesuit, and they sent him back to Mexico, hoping he was sick at the time. They sent him back here, hoping he would get better. And while he was back here, no sooner than he returned here, the president at the time, I think it was Calles, he outlawed public worship. He outlawed the sacrifice of the Mass, and so Father Pro used to disguise himself and go around helping people, and he did that for about a year before he was accused of bombing the president. Totally false charges, and he was taken here without a trial. And everybody will remember he put his arms out straight and he says, Viva Cristo Rey, Viva Cristo Rey. So this is the place where Blessed Miguel Augustin Pro was shot to death. I must find out where his graveyard is, his tomb is, but I'll do that later. But this is the place in Mexico City where Blessed Miguel Augustin Pro was shot. So I'm outside the church here where Padre Pro remains are. It's very beautiful. I'll film inside, and in here there's a museum, so I'll bring you into the museum and then I'll go into the church. So I'm here in the Museum of Padre Pro, and here's his Mass kit, which you can see here. Obviously, we're talking about the Mass, the traditional Latin Mass as we would know it today, but it's very beautiful. The Mass kit opened up into an altar, and anyway, the noise you hear is a recording. Viva Cristo Rey. So we're just going to come over here to where just some of the and some of the costumes, because he used to go around disguised sometimes to be able to serve people. You can see some of the disguises here. And you can see here the photos of when he died. So that was the place where Padre Pro was shot to death, and the museum, and his remains are in that beautiful Jesuit chapel, Parroquia de la Sagrada Familia, the Holy Family parish, about 3 kilometers from where I am here in Mexico City. And I just thought it was interesting. I've been to Mexico City since, I've been coming here since 1994, yearly practically, and I didn't know about that museum, which I thought it was very well put together. So it was a good morning, and I think at least now, if you never get to Mexico City, at least you're able to see some of the artifacts. And I did find it very impressive to see, his mass kit, his personal kit, and the books that he would have used. To really see a little bit behind the man who was Padre Pro, and it's interesting in the church today. I do find it interesting if you had a priest like him today at the church, he'd probably be persecuted from within the church today. If you were to bring a priest back and form him like Padre Pro was formed in the 1920s, he'd probably be persecuted in the Catholic Church today for his beliefs and the way he would have practiced and so forth. I mean, I know that the times have changed, and we need to confront the world and the problems in the church with a different perspective. But there seems to be this crisis of identity of what exactly a priest has to be today. I mean, many Jesuits wouldn't even bother wearing their clerical garb if they could. Padre Pio had to go around dressed with civil clothes to avoid being caught. But if he could, he would have showed his identity as a priest at that time. But it seems like things have gone very strange in the world today. The persecution of good priests isn't by the government. Today, persecution of good priests in the church, those who actually believe, that actually promote devotions, renewal of the Eucharist, that actually reverent masses, the persecution is within the church. That is very, very sad, but it's true. It's true. And I suppose we just need to pray for the church at this moment in time, and I hope priests and martyrs like Padre Pro give inspiration to a new generation. We have to be a sign of contradiction, really. The world thinks the Catholic faith has nothing to offer, and we need to show that it does. So anyway, I just my thoughts on it, and please pray for the church, pray for the faith. These are not easy times. And we need to definitely help priests and give leadership to a generation to show them that the faith means something to us, and that it is worth dying for. It is worth dying for. Anyway, God bless. Take care. Bye-bye.